Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Dear Darling. Shall we see what's going on on our lovely little island of Fawnhollow today, as I just shift around my desk ergonomically. You know, normally I play using the HDMI input onto my monitor screen, feeding through my capture card, well, from my Switch dock through the capture card to the computer. Now I'm just playing on the OBS screen now because it's honestly like 10 times easier to set up. Like I don't have to wait for like my monitor to switch over to HDMI port, and sometimes it doesn't recognize the input, so it switches back to display port. I'm like, when I can just maximize the OBS screen and just play on a slightly smaller screen, a little bit of a delay. That's fine, doesn't really matter for Animal Crossing. So hello there everyone, right now in Fawnhollow, it's 4:40 PM on Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021. I feel like something happened yesterday in Animal Crossing, but I honestly can't remember what it was. Oh, it rained. No, there's something else. I felt like a villager moved out or something. Maybe they didn't. Did I just make it up? I think I just made it up in my head. But yeah, I don't think anyone's moved out. The only one who can move out right now would be Mirror, right? Like burritos? Like Flowers Burrito. So I ordered way too many flower thingies because, you know, more is better. And I guess sometimes it is, but not right now. Because I can't walk into my house with all the gardening stuff, drowning in seeds, already. And Jolly Red gave us this. So yeah, what's happened recently? Apparently my mailbox is filling up once again. I guess we should keep that. We've got too many things clogging up our inventory. So that's what we got to sort of start getting rid of some of these. Okay, that's something I'll maybe do later. I don't really know. If I don't, then whoops. Hopefully Nintendo will give us a expanded mailbox at some point. But no, I think I was going to talk about today. Oh, hello, Belle. Sorry, Label. I keep calling you the Belle. There was a recent Twitch event ran by, I believe, Mizkif is his Twitch username. I'm not like Flame Tea, excuse me. I'm not super like well informed about the ongoing streamers and the Twitch community, except for, you know, outside of the Northern Line, because, you know, the Northern Line, outside of Northern Line, because that's who I watch. But there was a recent event which incorporated a lot of Twitch streamers to basically participate in something which is kind of like, are you smarter than a 10-year-old? Which, you know, I only found about recently because Northern Line was on it, so that's how I found about it. And I was like, oh, you know, I love my quiz shows. I love to, well, I don't really like to flex my any necessarily ability I have, but I do like to, you know, participate in these sort of things and like try and see how well I can do with these questions. So I say I watched it. I didn't really watch it. I didn't watch it live. I watched the VOD afterwards. I sort of like skipped through. Basically, I didn't really care about the comedy part and people interacting because I didn't know who most of the people were in the first place. Like, I heard of them. Like, I've heard of Destiny and who else was on it? I've heard of Elenity. I've heard of some other people on the show, but most of them I didn't really know all that well. I guess we'll put the Flame Tea on. This is comfy. That's not comfy. Is all I can really think about from that sort of thing. We should just find, like, I guess a boa parka. That's pretty comfy, and a hoodie. Sorry, not a hoodie, a beanie. That'd be a super comfy. That's just what we need to do. There we go. What was I gonna say? I guess flip flops are kind of comfy, but that seems a bit strange. House slippers, sure, that seems comfy. Yeah, so I basically just skipped through just looking at all the questions because I just want to see how well I would do myself. I to be honest, I don't think it's too surprising. I think I would have done pretty well in the thing. Yet again, I'm not a big Twitch streamer, so I probably wouldn't have been invited on in the first place because I'm not and don't expect to. It was all just basically, you know, how like you'd play along with a quiz show, seeing how many questions you can answer. This is obviously a much more simplified version because these people are not people like signing on to go onto quiz shows and expecting to have a tremendous range of knowledge. They're meant to be like either good at games or they're meant to be like entertaining in some sort of fashion. So that's why they've been invited on to the show in the first place, because, you know, notoriety. Well, notoriety makes it sound bad, like they're popular, right? So obviously all the questions on the show are meant to be somewhat easy. They start at the quick kindergarten level. They ask, and I think it was like 3 or 4 questions which are like maths, science and social studies, which I will say that's a very unfair distribution of the subjects that you learn in school, but okay, you know, fair enough. I feel like maths and science should be, if maths and science are 2 separate subjects, then there should be like maths, science, English and humanities or something. Or it should be maths and science. What would I do? I do maths and science, humanities, languages, English and language, and I don't know what fourth one would be. I guess be social studies or something like that. Like miscellaneous, other, like arts, and I guess you can have art literature, but at this point it just becomes a trivial pursuit sort of category, which is not exactly what we're going for. But you know, it's not up to me to how I would run it, because I was not the one running it, was I? I was just sort of semi-opaque socks. I don't know when we got this. I was just watching, and yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure I would do pretty well. Like, not to toot my own horn, my storage is full or anything, but I'm pretty sure I could have, like, you know, kind of knocked it out of the park there, because the questions, they're not supremely difficult, let's be honest. They're like mildly difficult at best. They start at kindergarten level. Like, one of the first questions was like, oh, I forgot we ordered so many of these, let's get rid of most of them. The first question is like, what day comes after Friday or something. It's like, okay, Saturday. Like, obviously kindergarten level questions aren't meant to be particularly difficult in the first place, so obviously they're reasonably easy, but it's like, no, hold on, we want this, we want to put this away in storage, and we want to keep these things in our inventory. Everything else gets sold, I think. Maybe not that. Let's have a quick glance over. Yeah, okay. And then, like, one of them was like what month comes after November? No, what month comes after October and it's November? Or, no, what month comes before November, which is, you know, October. Which was quite straightforward. That's something someone actually got that wrong, but you know, it is an opportunity where you could just be like, oh, how could you get something so obviously simply wrong? But you know, there's a lot of factors that go into this. They are performing to a live, not even necessarily studio audience, but online audience of 100,000 people or something watching it, from what I could tell, which is a crazy amount of people and a huge amount of pressure to be on, especially, you know, you're going on presumably as a streamer, you're like, oh, people don't have high expectations of me. I kind of want to prove that, you know, I'm not that, like, dumb, I guess, you know. I've got intelligence behind me, and, you know, but necessarily academic ways didn't always measure it necessarily, because, you know, people who go into streaming don't always, you know, necessarily, like, I don't know how to phrase this in a politest way possible. Some of them, you know, probably had a rough time in school or that sort of thing, so, you know, or they use this as a sort of like a way to escape, I suppose, from that sort of thing, which is completely understandable, because school, you know, can be a rough time for anyone going through difficult times and that sort of thing. And, you know, school often, they don't always do the best job to bring out the best in people, is my criticism of it. But also, you know, school don't get a lot of funding, so, you know, that's kind of on the government for not allowing all the students to try their best. And if unfortunately you are not one of the people who particularly gel well exactly with the exact way of the school, your school taught you, then you're just kind of sadly out of luck, aren't you? There's not really much you can do with that, especially if you know, you don't have the money to hire a tutor or anything like that. You just, what do you do? And I don't have a good answer for you there. You just are sad, I suppose, with the situation at hand. This is very unfair, and it is unfair. So yeah, I don't mean it in a, I don't want to start like some sort of thing being like, oh, how could you get that wrong? You know, how can you be so dumb? Streamers all dumb. No, that's not true necessarily. Like, okay, but probably are some streamers who might not be the greatest in that sort of aspect. I don't know how to frame it, and they're completely fine with that. Fair enough, but you know, I feel like it's sort of like, as Einstein says, you don't measure a fish's ability to climb a tree to prove its worth, or that sort of thing, you know. And school isn't necessarily open to that. But anyway, the point here is that this quiz show was based around all like schooling things, like things you learn in academic institutions from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade, which I don't know how old that is, but that's presumably the last schooling year, just before like starting a college or university. And it's really fun to follow along. I'm of course someone who did very well academically, and I did very well with the school structural system, so I found it easy. And then the thing with school is it's a really big snowball effect. Like, if you fall behind in one thing, you just fall further and further and further and further and further behind, and it's really hard to stay on top of things if you're already behind in the first place, which is, you know, not good. I know, but it's like, I don't know. That's why, like, what do you do? Like, do you cater to the person who's struggling the most. Yeah, that'd be nice if you could, but then you have people who can't reach their full potential because if they're being held back as well. It's just like okay, so what you do, you have different sets and that sort of thing. Okay, not every school can afford to have like loads of different classes and loads of different teachers simultaneously teaching that sort of thing. So it's like, what do you do? Increase funding, hopefully, to schools, but then, that's neither here nor there. Not really, unfortunately, so I have much control over. But if we could, that'd be good. But yeah, I think it was like, obviously it was just something that's all in good fun. Like the streamers are going in being like, oh, obviously people don't expect all that much of me. In the first place, I'm just sort of here to have fun. If I can prove myself, that's cool. But and plus some streamers are very clever. Like I believe a winner, spoiler, HBox, he's like a degree in chemical engineer, or he was a chemical engineer or something. So good on him. He looked very happy to win. Even though I was rooting for Northern Ireland in the end. In fact, he got to, it was a final down to those two. I feel like he deserved a win. Not that like it's really my place to judge about something, but it was just, in the end, it was fun to watch, and it was fun to follow along with the questions. And it was obviously all played up for laughs. And if anything, I think it's sort of like a testament to how much stuff from school you don't need to remember anymore, which is obviously something people parrot a lot. And it's true, because when you start off with school, you learn from numerous different subjects, and like areas, like you learn every subject, because at that point in life you don't really know what you want to specialize in or what you want to try and learn more about. And even when you get older, it's not particularly easy to make that decision in the first place anyway. But okay, let's make some coconut things, and then we should probably sort out flowers, and then talk to Biscuit, and then other stuff. Yeah, because you learn everything, but you don't retain everything, and you don't need to retain everything, because a lot of the things become kind of pointless to you eventually. Like, do I need to remember like exactly the cell diagram by learning biology? No, because I'm not a biologist. I don't need that information anymore. I still can remember some of it. Like I remember, like, there's a cell, like a plant cell has a cell wall, it's got a cell membrane, got cytoplasm and chloroplast inside of a nucleus and a vacuole, and I can vaguely remember what they kind of do, but is that necessary information for me? No, what was necessary information for me was like, maths and statistical tests and that sort of thing, probability and how that works. Those are all very important to me, and still are, and very useful to me on a daily basis. But the problem is, for the school system, is every single student in my class is going to need a different set of skills that we'll need in future life, but we don't know what they are yet, and it's different for every single person. So it's just like, how do you know? You don't. And that's a problem. So what ends up happening is, I suppose, you end up learning a lot of redundant information. Like, do I need to know specifically about what caused the Second World War? No, not really, because it's not something that I need to know on a daily basis. I do vaguely know it, and it's nice that I have an awareness of vague sort of concepts which happen, so I can, apply them to real life when the sort of similar things happen, when I see like movements, I suppose, in political space and that sort of thing, and you can draw conclusions from that as you may, but it's not really like in day-to-day practical life. It's not practical for me, but for someone who's a historian, who's trying to recount, who's trying to detail the exact movements and study this in detail, that is important, and they probably don't need to know things like how to integrate, like, I don't know, trigonometric functions, because like they don't need it. Like, why would they need it? Like, oh, I'm studying history and I specialize in ancient Roman times. What do I need to know? Like trigonometric identities, so I can rearrange this into a form that I can now integrate. What? Of course you don't need that. But anyway, I suppose that's like what the tongue-in-cheek of the show is. It's to sort of bring light to it and be like, ha ha ha, look how much we basically don't need to remember anymore. And it's just a competition of how much you can remember, which really, honestly, plays to my strengths. So if I can somehow get myself onto that show next time I do it, I think I have a good chance of winning, because I followed in with the finals. I'm trying to think, but I got 2 questions wrong. One of them was the one that was like, who was a king who defeated the Incan Empire or something. I legitimately had no clue what that was, because we never learned about Incan empires in school, and I'm not very interested in history, so I never read about that. I can't remember the answer was. It was like Francisco Pizarro or something. Like, but no, I saw the answer and I was like, I have no idea who that is. But okay, I was never going to get that right in the first place. The other question I got wrong was the final question, which was what was a word that describes a relationship between 2 organisms where one is benefited and the other gains nothing from it, but is neither harmed nor helped in the relationship. Now, obviously, this is an example of a symbiotic relationship, and I was like, okay, this is a symbiotic, but symbiotic's not the thing, because symbiotic, I know, is an umbrella term of like when two species work together for one of a species, at least, to be benefited. And I was like, okay, I know one of them is parasitic, which is when, you know, one species is harmful to the other species, but the first species gets the benefit. And I know there's one where they both benefit each other, which is mutualism, and I knew there was a term for one where one benefits and the other is basically neutral throughout the entire thing. And there's a term I knew, but it was not one that I could like summon up just like that. It would be like if you wrote it down for me, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's right, I would remember it. But it's very difficult to think about in that time, because especially a thing that you might not realize is they're under extreme time pressure. Why is there a red rose here? What? How long has that red rose been there? I guess we'll just replace you with a windflower. Hopefully it's not a windflower behind it. I think it's a tulip, so yeah, we're good. Yeah, they're under an immense time pressure. They've only got about like a minute to answer the question, and they're answering it in front of about 100,000 people who are judging it, and you know, or I think it was maybe 150,000 people. And if you think it's so easy to just perform like that in front of an audience, one, you should probably be someone who performs on stage much more often, because you'd be so good at that if you are so confident in it. But two, it's not, you know, any sort of pressure put on, even if it's something that you know easily. Like, I looked at all these maths questions that they were doing and things, and obviously I could do them, because, you know, hopefully that's what I'd be able to do with a maths degree. You'd hope I'd be able to do questions from that you see from in high school and downwards, with the simplest of ease. But would I be able to do it exactly the same, to my exact same efficiency, and make no mistakes in front of 150,000 people? I'm not so sure, to be honest. It's difficult. It's nerve-wracking, I suppose, is probably the best way to put it. And if you think it's not, search Tom Scott, You Can't Do Simple Maths Under Pressure, because that is a very good way to illuminate to you how difficult it is to do basic things which you find trivial normally, but as soon as it's like, you got time to it, you got some additional pressure on you, it becomes insanely difficult for some reason. Because that's just how the human mind works. You like psych yourself out, and then you set yourself into fight and flight mode, which is not rational thinking mode. But yeah. So yeah, even though I was looking for maths questions being like, oh, this is simple for me, would I be able to do it in front of our audience? Would I be able to do it while trying to be entertaining at the same time? I don't think so. So, you know, a lot of people are like trying to erase the credit that I suppose the streamers get from it, when I'm just like, you know, honestly, it's kind of impressive in certain ways. Obviously, because all of them have different levels of education. Some of them might not even like finished high school or anything like that. It's difficult. It's basically what it ends up being. It's difficult, you know. I don't think they should be mocked for that sort of thing, especially because it's really embarrassing to put yourself out there if you know you're not good at that sort of thing, just in front of 150,000 people, and like just like one of the people was like, oh, we got the wrong month that comes before November. That's honestly really embarrassing, and really brave to do that in the first place. So, you know, they have my respect. I was going to buy some flowers for a friend, but I didn't want to send a wrong impression, you know. Wrong colour arrangement can be disastrous. It can literally change the course of our friendship. Or not. They're just flowers, right? Sometimes I need to say it out loud to check myself. That's neat dialogue, I think. Yeah. I love quiz shows and that sort of thing, and I guess it was refreshing to look at this school event and be like, oh, you know, it's nice to follow along with a quiz show and be like, oh, I know like most of these answers. Instead of the cases of like when I usually watch a university challenge, I'm just like, don't know, oh, I know this one, don't know, etc, etc. It's demotivating in so many words. But oh, I must have accidentally erased it. The invisible path which sits there. So yeah, I think it was really cool. Like, and there are definitely some issues with the show, because some of the questions, as I understand it, I read a Reddit thread on it, was they lifted the questions from textbooks, but some of the textbooks aren't always very good with questions. Some of them were kind of weird. Like one of them was like, what city is the Great Wall of China in? And I was like, what? Because it spans many cities, in fact. Some of this was like a second grade question or something. So obviously, you can draw conclusions from like meta knowledge. Like, oh, this second grade question, they're only going to want you to answer Beijing, It's not like even, it doesn't even like go through Beijing. It's like quite a distance from Beijing, but still, like, if he said the Great Wall of China is in Beijing, I'd be like, okay, I get where you're going from, but like, you're not quite right, but you know, fair enough. So, you know, that, we didn't even bring that up in the show apparently. That should definitely be like proofread a little bit. Miss Giff, if you're watching this one random person who has like 10 views on her videos, and you need someone in the second year of school to write some questions for you and like fact check them, I'm your person. I've got the credentials to prove it. Amusingly. But yeah, it's the sort of thing where it's like, yeah, that one was wrong. But someone actually wrote it goes through multiple cities, which is definitely correct. I couldn't name you the cities it goes through, mind you, but I don't think a second grader could either, mind you. And I mean, unless they're in China, but yeah. But that's the sort of thing I guess you could guess the answer with meta knowledge. You'd be like, oh, it's second grade. And the only like city that you'd expect to know in China, if you're not from China, would probably be like Beijing. Maybe Shanghai. Or something else. But yeah, so, you know, I don't blame them for not knowing, because you're not told much about Chinese geography when you're in America about something. I only know because I am Chinese myself, so that's a distinct advantage. Another one was like, what's the longest river in Asia? I could obviously answer Yangtze, as it's called in English, although I think it's called like Changji or something in Chinese. I forget its name, but you know, unsurprisingly we didn't know. But also the same when it comes to like American history questions, I'd be like, I don't know the answer to this either. So that's why I went in with no, like, not biases per se, but more like judgment. Yeah, no judgment. I didn't actually realise you could just straight up say no. That's the first time I've ever seen this. Especially since this is something I haven't even got before. There's some other ones. There's one, like, I just skipped through the discussion of it, but apparently there's one where it was just like round to the nearest 10th. One of the contestants asked, do you mean 10th or to the nearest 10? And then the host themselves, you know, to be fair to, I guess his name is probably Miskiff. I don't know if that's actually his name or whatever, but that's at least his username. He was, I think he answered like to the nearest 10, which, you know, and then they answered to the nearest 10 and the actual answer was to the nearest 10th. It was like, oh, you know, we had to write that question off because it was just a mistake. And unfortunately on the host part, because, you know, fair enough, the host doesn't know all the answers to all the questions themselves. He's just like a host. But, you know, it'd be cool if they had like an expert panel, you know, like a lot of panel shows and like TV game shows have. You know, like in Countdown, they've got the woman there who does like all the maths things. They got the other woman and the guy who's got the dictionary and they're looking up for possible words and that sort of thing. And you know, just have like an expert panel who can answer any other clarifications. So when the person's like, is this to the nearest 10th or 10th? They can be like, to the nearest 10th. There's another question as well. Oh yeah, there was a cell question about a vacuole where I thought it was kind of misleading, but I'm not entirely sure. Where it was just like, where in the cell are like nutrients and something and something and something other are stored, but it didn't specify what type of cell. And the answer was vacuole, because that does kind of match a vacuole, but they probably should have specified plant cell, because if it was like an animal cell, animal cells don't have vacuoles. Or they do and they're like really tiny and non-functional or something. So the answer becomes like cytoplasm, I think, is where the things are stored. But again, I don't think I was. But, oh yeah, this is the worst one. It was like, which way does the Earth rotate, anti-clockwise or clockwise? And you know, if you think about it for more than a second, you're like, how does this make any sense? And it doesn't, because it depends if you can't really describe a 3D rotation being clockwise or anti-clockwise, because it depends which way around the axis you're looking through. Like it's fine on a 2D object because you can say you're looking at the front or the back, and obviously you're not going to be looking at the back when describing its rotation of a clock. But like with the Earth, it's like, do you look from North Pole or South Pole? Is it clockwise or anti-clockwise? It's like, you know, that's why you need someone. You need a fact checker to be like, hey, okay, you should specify from the North Pole here, or you should, you know, have a different way of mentioning rotation of the Earth. Like west to east or east to west, I suppose, but which is, you know, fair enough. I don't blame them for getting wrong, because the questions aren't exactly phrased super like exam questions. They've filtered them down to try and make them more readable, I suppose, and that sort of thing. When left out excess details, and you know, didn't lift exam questions probably exactly from the papers, is my guess. which did sort of sour the mood because I did skip through a lot of they had like 8 earlier qualification, like preliminary rounds, I suppose. I did skip through quite a lot of them, and just I didn't mean to swap it, just bury it again, just to see what was going on. But for the previous rounds, a lot of them were significantly easier, I will say. I feel like I did pretty well in preliminary rounds as well. Not many questions came up where I didn't know the answer. Well, actually, there were extra credit questions I didn't know, like one of them, no, not that one. That one I got right. One of them was like who painted a girl with a pearl earring, which is like, I can't remember his first name, but it's like John or something, Johannes or something, Vermeer. I didn't know that from Animal Crossing, amusingly. But there was another one, I can't remember what it was, but I definitely got wrong. I think it was something to do with like the church, like who, not reinstated church, but there was one like who like created like, which king created like the Church of England, which is Henry VIII, I know, because he wanted to like divorce Anne of Cleves? No, Catherine of Aragon, right? That makes more sense. And then the Catholic Church was like, no, you're married for life. And he was like, well, screw that, I'm going to make my own church where I can divorce them. So that's what happened. But there were some genuinely tough questions, and it was super fun, honestly, to play along with, you know? As I said, it's always nice to play along with a quiz show where you basically know a lot of the answers and a lot of them are trivial to you. It makes you feel smart, but, you know, you can get humbled at the same time when they ask a social science question. You're just like, I don't know, when everyone else gets it right. I'm sure. But, yeah, I mean, hopefully they do it again at some point. I don't know if they're going to field people to be like, oh, can we get, like, some fact checkers? And I'll apply. I'll send in my CV, be like, look at my qualifications. 11 A stars. 4 A stars at A level. And an A and 2 S's. And a degree. I'll be like, oh, not to brag or anything, but hopefully I'll be decently okay answering academic questions like that. Or not, I don't know. Watch your space. If I somehow blow up on Twitch in a year and it goes on again, I'm gonna go on that game show and I'm gonna win it. Or at least, hopefully, give my best shot. It's a lot easier to say you'll win it because I'm not in like the hot seat answering a question under a time pressure or time crunch, which, like, I am pretty cool under pressure, but you know, if you get like a sense of jamais vu, no, not jamais vu, presque vu, sorry, when you're answering a question, a minute's not long enough to sort it out. Like I like that symbiotic question, you know. If I sat there on a certain day, maybe I can get the answer. I think the answer's like commissionalism. Like, to be honest, the word doesn't actually stick in my brain all that well, but I would recognise it if you were like to find what this word meant. On a different day, maybe I would be able to answer that question, but you know, you don't have a different day. You've only got 1 shot and 1 minute to think of our answer. Would I have done it? I don't know. So the question one comes, would I have beaten H-Box in the final? I don't know. I would have been at the exact state of H-Box when he won. I would have had two Fs. Because I got the exact same questions he did, correct and wrong, so there's not really much to that, unfortunately. But it was like a good learning experience as well. Like, I did learn some things. Like, the emperor who ruled while Hercules was doing his task was called Aristides. Something like that. Okay, maybe I didn't learn as well as I thought I did. But I can vaguely recollect it. I know, so it just goes back to like a university challenge, quote, quote, sort of thing we had back in school. Which, I don't know, maybe I should share more stories about sometime. Because I love these, like, quiz bowl-like things. Because there's this website we went on, which was like quizbowl.net or something. It was like a Jeopardy quiz bowl sort of thing. I loved doing it. It was super, super fun to answer the questions and that sort of thing. But unfortunately, not so popular with my friend circle. We did it a few times, but, you know, hasn't really stuck around all too much. But I was pretty good at it, I like to think. Now you might say, like, hey, does that mean you're good at pub quizzes? Surprisingly, not that good at pub quizzes, because a lot of pub quizzes tend to do with pop culture sort of things as well. It's like, who's this actor who blah, 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 acted in this sort of thing. And I'm like, I legitimately no idea. But an academic quiz, that's the sort of thing I could get behind, you know? Like, I don't know. Like, what are the units for a moment are, and you know, that's Newton meters. Is that right? I hope it's Newton meters. It's actually a really cool pattern I've got down here. It's a shame that we can't keep it. But perhaps we can use this sort of technique later on to get some sort of like interweaving braid pattern. I don't know where we'd put it though, but it looks nice at the very least. I want to do some icy pattern like that. I see when I'm icy. I see that I'm on fire. Yeah, at some point I've got to do these other paths. So yeah, I don't know, schooled. Pretty cool. It was a pretty cool event. I'd like to see more of it. Obviously, if there was like an actual quiz show, like on TV, which is like, oh, you know, based around that sort of thing, like, are you smarter than a 10-year-old? I'd be like, I'm now competing against people who actually want to be in a quiz show and have trained to be on this quiz show and that sort of thing. Maybe I'll, like, in the past be like, oh, you want to go in Jeopardy? No thanks. Well, Jeopardy's a lot of pop culture questions, to be fair, so I'm not very good at that. University Challenge and Only Connect. Well, Only Connect is sort of like a mix. University Challenge is not really pop culture. University Challenge, much more my thing, but I'd have to really prepare for it because University Challenge is insanely difficult. But it's super cool. I do like watching them. Whenever I find myself being bored and I'm like, I don't know what to watch, just watch a good old episode of University Challenge. I feel like I've talked about it before in the Animal Crossing series. Very good. We've got this path down. I guess tomorrow we'll be laying down the ice foundations for this. Well, not foundations, but ice topping for this. Now that we've got foundations, that's a good point to round off here, don't you think? So yeah, this schooled. Sorry, I kind of spoiled the results, but you know, go play along if you want. See the questions, see how well you do, and it was pretty cool. If you have been watching, thank you very much. This has been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, all greatly appreciated. Join my Dayline Discord down below and follow me on Twitter. Hope we can see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye bye for now.